Hello everyone, Jeff here. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to take a few minutes to talk about Hellclock. This game is coming out tomorrow, or if you see this in the future and you're considering purchasing the game, I'm going to give you a little description about like what's going on, what this really is, and there'll be a link in the description if you want to check it out. Not a sponsored video. I'm just a huge fan of the game. It's my indie game of the year at the moment, and I think it's pretty fantastic. So the best way I could describe it is if you took Diablo 3's combat, you took Grim Dawn's Constellation tree, you took Path of Exile's skill tree, you merged them all together, and they had a roguelike baby. That's kind of the game. And it is fantastic. So from a combat standpoint, I'd say the closest feel is like Diablo 3. It's super smooth. It feels good to do everything with. All the buttons are responsive and whatnot. There is like activation time on skills. There's a decent variety of skills, not a huge variety. That's something I hope they address in the future. There's just like not that many, but there's enough that it's going to be interesting. As far as Grim Dawn, this game has a constellation tree from Grim Dawn. I mean, it's pretty much just that. It's a constellation tree. It's mostly for post-game stuff, post-campaign anyway. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then there are actually two Path of Exile style like trees, and the old bell through the campaign, and then the hell bell for the post-game content, which is where I think most of the content is going to be, but the campaign itself is also really nice. Speaking of the campaign, it is based on actual Brazilian history. I'm not the person to ask about that because I don't really know about it. I haven't studied about it too much. The story is pretty cool, and it gets a little heaven versus hell sort of Diablo feel added on to that historical event. The campaign's fun. It's interesting. I think the pacing of it's really good. I have finished it. I think it took about, I want to say 15 to 20 hours with a not optimized build or whatever to speed through it, going in like no rush at all. But let's talk about what this game is. So the campaign is a roguelite. You will go into the dungeon, collect soul stones, which we will spend at the bell to get more powerful, and you'll get more relics. And as you get more relics, they'll make your abilities more powerful. You'll kind of decide to build you want to go to, but you can switch however you want any time, and you'll slowly work your way down. The game power cliffs pretty hard after each like boss wave. So like on stages 7, 14, and 21 in each of the 3 acts, after the boss, the basic enemies get significantly harder, and there's a good chance you will just get one shot sometimes. It's totally fine. It doesn't take that long to get back down to like where you were because you're so much stronger than you were last time, and it feels fantastic. No complaints about the campaign. Now, the post game is a pure roguelike, but it's done in a really interesting way. So you'll start a new ascension, basically. You keep all of your quests. It's called promises, but they're quite literally just like extra constellation points. And you're going to put them on this ascension tree. And this is going to make the game more difficult. Most importantly is the first note on this is going to make it so you're limited to 7 runs. And you get +7 each time you finish an act. So if you don't finish an act in 7 attempts, you lose and you got to start over. So that's kind of the thing. And then you're pushing hell difficulty up as high as you can. I have no idea how difficult this is actually going to be. I assume there's a limit to the point where like it's unbeatable currently because there's not enough constellations to actually do this. But like you have to take a pretty significant hit to even start. Like, for example, this is like a starting Hell 10 run. You don't have to go straight to Hell 10, but you should do at least a Hell 1 when you replay. Now, when you do restart, you lose all of the relics you had, and you lose all of your bell progress. So you're starting off clean with everything except this constellation tree, which you should have, I believe, 10 points in from completing the campaign. At least that's how it is right now in the testing version. This is still like the end game is still in the testing phase, so they're going to get a lot of feedback as soon as the game comes out about how to address some of this. So if you finish the campaign and you go to Ascension, you're going to lose all of your like loot and stuff. So I recommend just starting a second save because you can skip the campaign that way. And it's basically the same thing. And that way you have all your other stuff if you want to play around with builds in Act 3. So this roguelike mode, though, is actually really interesting because you're constantly balancing, like, how greedy do you want to be with how far you want to go on each run against how much time you have left and how much damage the enemies are doing to you. You can play this on hardcore or softcore. I'm not a fan of hardcore myself in most of action RPGs, so I'm playing in softcore. But if you are playing on hardcore, if the timer ends, it doesn't count as a death, or I believe if you just escape and abandon the run, that doesn't count as a death either, so you could just like peace out if it gets dangerous. But it wouldn't count as a death, but it would still count as a run, so you'd still only have your 7 runs. Kind of what you're doing is figuring out your economy as well. Ideally on the first run, you're going to want to beat the boss on wave 7, or floor 7 at the very least. That's going to give you some number of gems to spend in the new in-game talent tree, the new bell. Basically, it's revamped, that has a bunch of different, types of upgrades if you want more mana, more health, more damage, more soul stone gain, which is your meta progression and whatnot. And then you're going to have all your relics that you got from the run. And then you're going to have to decide too, because if you sell relics back, that gives you more soul stones that counts towards the bell, which is a really weird system. And I think they should probably do away with it because it gets really tedious, because you're incentivized to basically purchase relics from the shop and then immediately recycle them to push your bell level higher early. It's a weird thing. It feels kind of cheap doing it, and it's also super tedious. So I think finding some way around that would be better. But what ends up happening is, I'd say the first like 3 runs are super interesting as far as trying to figure out what build you want to go, and then past that you're kind of stuck down a path. Now currently in Ascension mode, you cannot respec your Constellation, which is kind of good, kind of bad. So the Constellation is like how you pick your class. The game doesn't have classes, but there's basically a dexterity, strength, and magic pathways you can start with in the Constellation tree, for lack of a better word, or lack of a better like explanation. And they'll kind of lead you down different elemental damage types, or like if you want to have like a high mana focused build, or if you want to have a high life focused build, you want to focus on like marksmanship skills, that type of thing. Depending on what you start with is kind of going to lead you down to one path throughout your run. Now you can like deviate a bit, but if you start as a projectile character, you're probably going to, like if you start as a marksman character, you're going to stay a marksman character the entire run. Now the entire run is going to take you several hours. So that's where the roguelike part gets really odd, because, each run is gonna run you like 7 to 10 minutes or so, probably. And you're looking at 7 to 10 minutes times, you'll probably finish Act 3 if you win in less than 21 runs, but probably not less than 15 until you get really good. So you say 15 times 10 is 150 minutes. I mean, that's not bad if you're going like fast, but then that's also not counting all the time spent in between trying to like manage your stuff. So it's a cool system where you're like spending a decent amount of time trying to like plan for your run and set up so that you're stronger than the previous run to push a little bit further each time. And the runs themselves are in such short doses that the game ends up being just like very entertaining. I do think that the current state of the game is there's not quite enough skills, there's definitely not enough constellations. There's not enough constellations active. There's plenty of constellations, but they're just not set up yet. Outside of that, I think this is like a genre defining game. And I think we're going to see more games that are like action RPGs that use this like roguelike end game, rather than having a permanent loot treadmill to like slowly get small upgrades. You're just kind of like, it's kind of like rolling an alt over and over and over with slightly more difficulty, but slightly more power each time. and it's just super fun. I'm having a blast. Like I said, I'm at like 30 hours of playtime on the like official version. I had a lot of playtime on the demo version as well, so I don't know, like 40, like probably 50 hours total in the game, something like that. But I highly recommend it. There'll be a video up later of the first part of my Ascension run, and I'll be posting like at least hour-long videos all this week of my first playthrough of Hell 10 Ascension with a meteor build that went pretty well. But yeah, I hope you liked the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. And I will do more videos like this for new games in the future if you guys like it. Let me know in the comments. Appreciate y'all, and I'll see you next time. Jeff out. Bye.